All right, we are being live streamed. Excellent. I will share screen. All right, everyone. You don't need to see that. Okay. Just about to start. And thank you so much for coming. I will put the link here to the agenda doc in the chat. It's also linked from the schedule page. Here are the slides. And I'll put that in the conf channel as well. So we'll begin with some intros if people are good with that, hopefully. If you don't want to, if you would like to just unmute and say hello, that would be wonderful. You can also put in your introductions in here. People already started. I didn't need to tell you. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you. So let's actually do that. Let's give it just about, I'd say, 3 minutes for people to just come in and write down their name, your institution, and whatever interests you have in link data or in specifically in the context of discovery. So let's just give everybody a couple minutes to do that, and I will chime back in at 2:04 to see how that's going. And in the meantime, after 2:04, if anybody wants to just say hi and unmute, that's good too. I'll drop the link in again. I'll also put it in the conf channel, so it should be there as well. If anyone has having trouble editing it, please let me know. So we're just putting that in there, and at about 2:04, we'll start. You don't need to see my list. I'm going to get rid of that line because this is oddly there. Here we go. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. I do wish people would allow Zoom to pin things, but I can't have everything. So here's the document again, in case you're just joining. And we're just about to get started. So I'd ask people if they could put in their name, their institution, and an area, their area of interest in linked data or in discovery. Just give everyone just a few more seconds. I do know there are more of you on there that are writing though. So if you're having trouble accessing the document, please let me know. Everyone should be able to see the screen. Oh, thank you, whoever enabled closed captioning. Apologies, I forgot to do that. Okay, so as people are writing that in, I appreciate everyone coming in. I hope this will be a fairly interactive session. I don't mean that as a threat. I mean that as a good thing. It's sort of the last session of the day, and some of it's going to be presentation, so that's fine. Does anyone want to just chime in and say hello? You can if you want. This is not me desperately trying to make friends, although that would also be nice.
Hello from me, Susan. Hi, Huda. Thanks for hosting this session. I'm looking forward to it.
I was like, Susan's gonna say hello. I knew it. Thank you. Thank you for saving me, Susan. It's very nice.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Laura.
Ackerman. I'm having a good time today. I hope that's true for you too. Lots of discovery angles.
Indeed. Yes, if you're just joining us, I put the slides link and the agenda link in the conf. Oh, thank you, Susan. Yes, I appreciate pizza. I had a late breakfast / early lunch at like around 11:30. I decided I needed something, so I went and got a slice of pizza. So I would never say no to pizza, and I would appreciate that very much. Thank you. So we've got some more people, and I keep sharing this link, but please do look at the conf channel if you are not already in there. That also has the links in there, and I will intermittently say this. Oh, go ahead.
Are we for this session using the chat, or should we be using the Slack like we have?
I do have eyes on Slack. I haven't turned the chat off here, although I'll probably be paying more attention to Slack. So if folks have questions, they can always do that. But this is meant to be a more of an interactive thing. So I'd actually prefer if people you want to unmute and ask your question. That might be better. But I do have Slack open. So if someone says something there, I will pay attention to that. So thank you for asking that. People are still coming in. So I'm going to copy paste this in again. Sorry for seeing my entire address bar. But please do put your name in and your institution and your area of interest. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And thank you for those of you that said hello in person. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody that's on the call right now. So this is what I was thinking was a good idea for the agenda. And if people have thoughts about that, if they want to talk about something else, if some things come to you that you either really want to spend this time talking about, that's perfectly fine too. So the general format of the session is we were going to introduce the group, talk about what the Discovery Affinity group does, talk a little bit about history. That's what the slides are for. And I'll show you what the wiki looks like and different ways to get involved. Because I think one of the things that we've really learned from our sibling Wikidata Affinity group, or really relied on, is to understand how we might be able to approach getting people involved and getting volunteers. And we really do need those. So that would be great. For the topic for this session, I put in 2, and again, this is open, so it's sort of open to, if people have thoughts, please just add a topic in the section that says discussion topics here. One topic I thought might be interesting to talk about is just in general discovery work and projects. So we've seen a lot of examples come up during the conference. We could, talk a little bit about that. If you are working on a project, oh, yeah, right there. Oops, that's not the one. If you're working on a project right now, or if you know of one, or even if you have one, an idea in your head that you think might be interesting, or a need you think should be addressed, I think that would be great to just kind of, jot down and note. I'm going to copy this again in the chat just so people have that. And then the last discussion question is to see if we could spend a few minutes talking about what we think might be the biggest challenges and opportunities for discovery in the next few years. So that's kind of like a brainstorming session, really. And the idea is that for anything you're writing down, again, thank you for everyone who's putting in information and putting in your name and institution here. Please continue doing that. That we would use this document as a way to kind of capture that information. And it's always good to kind of have something to go back to as an output where you can, or an artifact where you can see what people are thinking about various projects and see if there are some ideas there that we can go back to later. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this. I'm going to put this in the Zoom chat again one more time. Everyone should be able to edit it. Please add your name and your institution and your area of interest in linked data and or discovery. I'm going to go ahead and start the slides in the meantime. And the link to the slides is also in the document, so you should have that. So I will admit that I took some of you who do attend the Discovery Affinity group. There's like I've mentioned before in meetings, there's a hardcore group of people that have been attending for a very long time, and we very much appreciate them. But some of this will look familiar to you because we do have a end of year recap set of slides we use. But I think it's good for those of you. I see a lot of names that I have not seen before attending a discovery call. So I really appreciate that, and I hope that some or many of you, hopefully many of you, will start attending these calls and come with your own ideas. So just to do a recap of where we're at. The Discovery Affinity group started in 2019. There's a link to the wiki, and I'll go over the wiki in a few minutes. And the original purpose was to get community input and discussion on a variety of topics related to demonstrating the benefits of linked data for enhancing discovery of library resources. So it was really trying to look at the intersection between what linked data allows us to do, how it allows us to create relationships and to connect resources and entities, and how that would translate into real applications in discovery. So that's what we're doing right now. I did check the Slack like 5 minutes before we started, and we had 348 members and 55 on the email list, although some of those might be bouncing. Historically, we've had more people on the Slack than the email, but we do use both to try to communicate when our next meetings will be and what our topics will be. So like I said, our first ever meeting was in February 19th, 2019. The numbers kind of have this interesting symmetry to them, so that's not something that we did on purpose, but it's kind of nice to see. We try to capture what we do in meeting notes and on the wiki page. And this is sort of a holdover from when we started, where we started thinking about how the topics that we discuss and the work that we produce as a result of our meetings intersect with other various areas. So some of you might know about the linked data for production, and before that, the linked data for libraries, sets of grants. And this really came out, I think we were still in LD4P, the first one, in that grant cycle. And we were beginning to explore different methods for enhancing discovery using linked data. And so this meeting is not, this set of meetings and these affinity groups really, some of them came about during or around the time of these grants. But the objective of these affinity groups is really to try to outlast that, to outlast the grant work, but become, part of the larger LD4 community. And we'll be talking a bit more about the community tomorrow. The conference is also part of the larger community, and the affinity groups are another vehicle to try to get community engagement and get people to participate. Because this is, this whole community, this conference even is really a community sourced project. The conference and the affinity groups. So I won't go through all of the outputs here, but you can find out more about that on the wiki. They include things like trying to get information about various systems of discovery, trying to understand what kind of data is already available that can support discovery, and a knowledge panel white paper that we really should just go ahead and publish. It's pretty much done. We want to kind of highlight some of the guest spots we've had. We call them crossover episodes, where we try to get other affinity groups. Either we go present at their session, or they come over and present at ours, or we do a combined session. And we've done that in this year, we did that with the Wikidata Affinity group, where we delved into the work that was presented at this conference as well, around musical works and the Cornell Library Catalog. We were very lucky, this was before they went live, to get Robert Sanderson and Heather White from Yale to come in and talk about Lux. And we had our first sort of international cross time zone effort where we had the IIIF wooden slips presentation, and that was all the way from, I believe, Hong Kong, or from Taiwan, sorry. And I will, yeah, we really encourage you to look that up. That was a fascinating presentation, and it really would be great if more people saw it and commented on that. Last year, again, we had a lot of archives work, but we're lucky to get Elizabeth Roke and Rook Tillman, who are both, done a lot of work in this area around archives and linked data, to talk about that. We had a panel presentation on discovery with several people, including Steve Meyer from the University of not Washington. I don't know why I said that. Sorry, it's a little late in the conference, and I think my brain might be slowing down. Madison, Wisconsin, Madison, and Allison Bayland and Laura Ackerman, and various other people. We had people from the University of Ghent come in and talk about various linked data projects. We were also lucky to do some combination work with ethics and linked data. And they had a brilliant book panel at this conference, and they were very kind to come in and talk to us about the things they were beginning to explore around ethics. And again, we keep going back to the Wikidata Affinity group and trying to steal all their good ideas, of which they have many. And the National Library of Sweden did a presentation about their linked data work. So again, these are all recordings that are available through our wiki and the notes. And so if you're interested in any of these projects and topics are of interest to you, please do go and look at our recordings. There's a lot of good stuff there, and I'm not just saying that because I'm one of the co-chairs. It'd be great to have people engage with that content, even if it is from before, and tell us new questions, new ideas, and new suggestions as a result. We did have a roadmap. So when I say we, I'm sorry, I forgot to say, and I should have said that at first. The Discovery Affinity Group has two co-chairs. I'm one co-chair, and Astrid DeSong from Stanford University is the other co-chair. She could not be here today, but the two of us have been running this together for a while. And before that, we've had other co-chairs that helped. So again, I won't go through everything, but I'll say that we did have a roadmap that we have come back to, tried to revise and tried to understand. And this gives you hopefully a sense of some of the topics that we have considered at various points. And I think we have tried to address all of these topics in some form or another over the years that the Affinity Group has been running. We really want to hear more about user needs and usability, because I think it became not a rallying cry, but a quote that became, that becomes popular during the conference, which was linked data is really as good as you can make use of it. Might have been Minor Gordon that said that. And so to kind of really think about the interfaces that we provide users, this includes library patrons, this could include catalogers if they're also trying to discover information. How can we really support them in finding the information? And that has a strong basis in understanding their user needs and using user-centered design. And so we really are interested in hearing more about that and looking at that kind of work. Nothing is possible without the data and without the models that allow us to make sense of the data, allow us to connect the data. So how does that work? We're always trying to understand that. All the technologies and processes and components that go into enabling discovery, of which, again, this is not a simple framework. There are many different pieces. Every library has its own sort of particular way of doing things, but in general, all of these processes of getting and cataloging information and then providing that to the discovery layer What are they, and how do they support different discovery patterns and interactions? Ethics, how do we know we've done a good job? How do we evaluate success? Challenges, of course, if there are opportunities, there are also many challenges, especially when we think about how to do work at scale, which is why it's not, I'll do another shout out, Zoe Deluxe. Not only is it great to see projects like Lux really take off, which is just such huge projects when you think about the number of entities, but also for instance, what we saw with the work that Richard Wallace presented on, just the amount of data and the amount of content. It's also really interesting to see things at work that organizations, large organizations, including different vendors do, because again, they're working at a larger scale. And so some of the challenges around infrastructure, some of the challenges are modeling. This is a very rich area, which we've tried to mine for several years, all of these topics, and then learning from each other, which again, really requires that there be people, participating and lending their expertise to each other. So possible future topics. We just began to kind of dip our toe in the IIIF waters around linked data. And again, it was a brilliant presentation that we had that our guest presenter made. There are several institutions, including mine, and actually mine before, because I used to work at Cornell, and mine now, because I work at Stanford now, both of which are deeply involved with Folio. And as that becomes more robust, questions around how entities are represented there and how information is represented there, how could that intersect with new avenues for discovery? And so that's not a question that's been answered yet, because it's still work in progress. And I mentioned Folio, but of course, we heard from Ex Libris, we've heard from other vendors. So how does the content modeling system, how do their workflows intersect with linked data, and where could that lead for all of us? I mentioned these again. I think over time, we've tried to do various things like, I guess, get a little meta, think about mapping out library discovery as part of the ecosystem. What does that mean? And so again, there's a lot of content on the wiki. And I am looking at some of the questions I'll get. I think some of you have been kind enough to already answer some, but we will get into how to participate in just a few minutes. This year, we've been really trying to understand how best to do outreach. We have, like I said, a hardcore group of very dedicated people that will come to many of our meetings, but we really want to be able to expand that reach for multiple reasons. One, it's great to have more participation and engagement in getting people's ideas and hearing, having them be able to share their voice. But also, quite frankly, it would be good to be able to have them help with the coordination. So this is not the part of the PBS telethon where I start asking you for money, but this is a community-oriented project, and we would love to see this work continue. So really being able to have people come in and engage with it, both as participants, but also as volunteers, is really crucial to the longevity of this group. We're thinking about, because of that, how to expand our outreach, how to go beyond our sort of one Slack channel and one email list approach, which we've been doing for many years, and to go beyond that. And how to add additional activities. So we are historically, we've been a very discussion-oriented group. I promise it's not just me talking for an hour every day or every session. If anything, I prefer that I don't do all the talking. So we've really tried to focus on getting people to come and present, but it's meant to be an informal, laid-back group where we can delve into issues and ask questions. And that's worked very well for us. But we would like to kind of start going beyond that. And one of the suggestions was having more focused working sessions. So we have done one where we really went into design, and we did one where a few weeks to a month ago, we had Christina Cortland from Cornell come in and really delve into code specifics, which was actually really great around how to bring in linked data into the Cornell catalog. So I have links to the LD4 community, which also has links to the different affinity groups. We're, of course, open to ideas and feedback around literally everything. What kind of formats to use, what kind of topics, how do we get more community input from you? What might you need from us in order to be able to participate more effectively? So going back to the question that Khadija asked, which I think I see Khadija on video. Hello, nice to meet you. Yes, regarding your question about how to participate, let's go to the wiki real quick, which is linked in the notes. So this is the wiki page, which has all of our recordings linked and some information, but you can see here is our Google Drive. Here is, I think Zoe already answered, there's the Google group you can join. The Slack channel, on the Slack channel that's also running the conference, has the Discovery Slack. So please add yourselves there. We promise we won't put you to work immediately. You can just listen in and participate, and that's great too. And so that's sort of where the main ways of participating right now are. And I will show you this, not to scare you, but our kind of very preliminary call organization folder. It's preliminary because it's still in progress. So I guess maybe preliminary is not the right word. But we did start thinking about, potential roles and terms. And of course, these are a little outdated, but we could use help with people who could just come in and say, I will come in for a session or two and take some notes, or I will come in for a couple sessions and help communicate, about the meetings, or facilitate, if you want to kind of do more, you could be helping us facilitate sessions. Or what would be really fascinating is coming up with ideas around who to invite and who our presenters could be, what kind of topics we could think of. We have our feelers out all the time, trying to see what kind of interesting projects are underway. So if you know of something, even if it's still just developing, we would love to hear about that. And again, I think we've done our best not to be too scary. So hopefully you can join in that way. So I'm going to drop this in the chat again. And thank you, Susan. Like I said, I copy pasted from last year very much. That's the only way I could have done it. But I did update this to have more information. And I've put the link in case there are people who have not put their name and institution in. I will not be sending you annoying telemarketer emails, but it is great to know who's here, and perhaps at some point reach out, or if you want to use this as a reference to come back to, it's great to be able to see who's here. So does anyone have any questions? Because I think I took much longer than I should have, and it would be great to jump into the discussion portion. But if you have questions, you can put them on Slack if you'd like, or you could just unmute and ask, since this is, we are being live streamed, but it's very informal. So I'll wait a minute in case anyone has questions. What a well-behaved group.
I don't have a question. I have a comment.
No, go ahead.
That this could also be a good venue for people who are developing features in discovery systems, or even have a naughty problem that they'd like to discuss with an interesting group of people. that was the function of the group during the grant project when, certain features that were in development were shown and allowed people to make comments and suggestions.
Yeah.
So if there are any developers or people involved in development projects, I guess my message would be maybe people should not be afraid to present on something that's a work in progress.
Yes. That's a great comment, Laura. Precisely. I think, we've got a whole roster of topics, but really all of them were, none of those are areas that we completely have solutions for, right? So we're not here to simply present, this is the way to do things. We're actually collaboratively, collectively trying to figure out how to do things. And so that's what we would really appreciate. Just for example, I see Nate, I'm going to pick on Nate a little bit from the Library of Congress. So in our presentation, not in a bad way, Nate, we said, we were showing a slide about how one of the APIs we were using, and Nate was like, well, actually you should be using this one. This one's better. And so, it's everything is still, the whole area, the landscape is still being defined. And one of the exciting things about that is that we can start to collaboratively define the directions we would like to see things go in. What kinds of questions and tasks do we want to be able to support? And of course, we won't be able to do everything, and we all have various levels of resourcing available, but collectively, if we put our resources together, even in such an informal way as this affinity group, I think that might lead to very interesting and kind of awesome things in the future, we hope. So, and again, so I think if folks are fine, I think what we're going to do now is ask this question. So let's do this. Let's spend about 5 minutes. If you could, and under discovery, work, and projects, and I will do that too, based on some of the things I just mentioned, just talk about or list down a project or some area of work you think that's really interesting or intriguing, or that you think we should be thinking about, and just put next to it if it's something that's current, if it's underway, or if it's just an idea right now. So maybe if we could all write for about 5 minutes, and at 2:37 we can kind of talk about that for a few minutes and then go to our next set of questions. And some of you have already come in and started writing, so that's great. So let's just give it about 5 minutes. So at 2:37 we'll resume. I will resume talking anyway. So this is just a list, a discovery project or a project around discovery you think is really interesting, or a project that involves discovery, etc. And it doesn't have to be done. It could be in progress. Sorry about that. I'm trying to just. Let's give it 2 more minutes. People are writing. This is cool. Okay. As people are beginning to wrap up, I think I said 2:37, so we're nearly there. Some really great ideas here. So I won't go through mine because they're already there, but I guess I already mentioned Richard Wallace and IIIF, but we've got trying to do more with works related linked data, mostly from Wikimedia sources. So this is a initial prototype, which is grouping and adding links to works and subjects to work, sorry, subject to, my authority brain went straight, to work subject to censorship attempts. John, is this you? Because you just...
Yeah, this is me.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? This looks really interesting.
Sure. So as I've said in some other contexts, I'm interested in various applications of linked data for discovery, in particular, some of the new linked data, bibliographic data there. And I use the online books page and some related things as ways of testing some of these ideas out. So one of the things I'm trying to do is look at, first of all, who's got open sources of work-related clusterings and documentation, and certainly there's some of that at Library of Congress, but also a bunch on Wikidata and Wikipedia itself. So my first application was basically trying to look at some of the things already in my database, but also elsewhere on censored works, where you want information not only on the work itself, apart from its manifestations, but also potentially for work on for information on how it's been censored or attempted to be censored. And it seemed like an interesting way to experiment or play around with the ideas of, making these connections between works and events. And I'm also looking for other applications of ways of connecting together works, creators, and other related entities to help improve browsing and contextual discovery of things. Mm-hmm. So it's still an idea. The ideas are still sort of coalescing, so they're not fully baked, but I'm finding this initial application an interesting idea, an interesting place to start fermenting some of these ideas and seeing how they would play out in practice.
That's great. Yeah, I don't know if you would, I think we had you come in when we first started too for a presentation. But yeah, if not on this, but on library information panels, I think, that are in Wikipedia. That was one of them. And there was also a custom interface for serials, maybe, but I don't want to.
Yeah, and I'm linking to some of these in this. So this one doesn't involve serials per se, but it does involve things like obviously linking to Wikipedia articles about a censored work, so you can find out more what it's about if you want to read it. And also another project I think I've talked about here was the Forward to Libraries. So yes. One of the things is basically, find out if your library or other libraries in the area actually have this if you're looking for it. And it launches searches into appropriate catalogs and such. So again, it's a way of trying to again, use linked data to link together not only data, but also some of these applications of what you can do with that data.
All right. That sounds, do people have any comments for John? Because that sounds really intriguing. So you're trying to set up this prototype. What, yeah, I think it'd be great to hear more about that.
Sure. I'll put a link to it in the chat. It still needs to be popular. One thing I found is that actually putting this all together is a fair bit of overhead, and just collecting the data and putting it in the way you want it. But this is sort of what I've got so far. Where's the chat?
You can put it, if you're comfortable putting it in Slack, you can put it there, or you can put it in chat, either one.
Okay, either one.
We'll pick it up either way.
Sure.
Awesome, thank you. I'll put it in the notes for now, and then I'll,
yep.
One of you could drop it in Slack, I would be.
Oh, sure, yeah, fine, I will do that as well. Yep.
Thank you. All right, the next questions are actually kind of, it makes sense. Need to do something, but where to start? Yes, so in trying to act wise for like 5 seconds, and I don't know how well that I will do that, but I would say that if that's the case, if it's a question of if are you talking about in production, or you're talking about just generally I want to do, because when it comes to prototyping, you can literally do anything. If you pick a specific subset of a problem, you can just start experimenting, and that's actually a lot of fun. So I'm seeing Anonymous Legend, which is a fascinating Google Doc name. And I don't know if they wanted to chime in and see anything more, or if they're done sharing, which is also fine. But Khadija, is that you speaking? I think you're muted though, or at least I can't hear you, because actually you're not muted. We can't hear you, sorry. Don't know why. Still, I don't think I'm the only one who doesn't hear you at all.
No, we can't hear her.
Yeah, I can't hear you at all. We're sorry. Do you want to try to connect to a different, do you have a different audio option? Or maybe you could try testing the mic. While you do that, I'll just read the next one and then you can just chime in. We'll know it works if it works. So we'll get back to that in a minute. Is it possible with our current data to do something similar to what the music projects in Link Data are doing for comics? If not, what might be needed? That's a really interesting question. Is Allison on? I feel like
That's me.
It is you. I was like, let's ask Allison. She should know the answer to this.
Because I've been contemplating, because I've added a lot of stuff to Wikidata, like most of the comic awards and everything are now in Wikidata. But I don't know that there is a database quite like Discogs, like comics.org, which is the ground comics database, exists, but it's very biased toward American comics and European comics. And so I think you'd have to run API queries for a bunch of potentially different services to really get something similar. And I also don't think, because I know the music is using the name authority file. And for comics, unfortunately, it's much more complex and complicated. I don't think that a lot of the name authority records will exist. And so I'm just kind of trying to figure out how something similar could be done and how it could be mapped for comics. And like, should it be modeled, go off the same kind of, have something in the NAF, or should it be something completely different? And what could we potentially pull from to do something similar?
I wonder if the Wikidata, well, that was video games, so I wonder if there's something to be learned from that project here. Yeah, so this is one of those we need to find the kind of connecting identifier for a lot of these to work, and like what would it be? I think, right, Allison? Did I understand it correctly?
Yeah, because so many things are modeled in different ways. So it's something that I've just been contemplating.
Jarmo, did I say your name right? Sorry.
Yeah, Jarmo, yes. I've been looking a lot of K-dramas recently, and noticed that many of the K-dramas are based on webtoons. So I was considering how well are webtoons described and compared to printed comics. Right. And especially in Korea and Japan, there are lots of webtoons. Okay, that's my question.
Yeah. I don't know if Allison knows that. I do not know the answer at all. I know about webtoons, but I don't know about the representation of information.
Like in Wikidata or in library catalogs, because there's a big issue with a lot of the stuff in Wikidata, because there's a lot of conflation for a lot of it. So a lot of people will put a manga series on the same record as the light novel series and the anime, and then add in something else as well. And so there's just a lot of problem points in Wikidata especially. And there's not consistency, but there's also not necessarily consistency in traditional cataloging like an OCLC either. So I think it's just a big mess. Music had, I think, much more procedures and rules kind of to make things easier in many ways. And I think comics has kind of just been a free for all for decades.
Thanks, Alex. Khadija, do you want to try again real quick? Or if you're not ready, that's fine. We can also you can maybe put your comments in Slack and I'll come back to that if the audio doesn't work. I still can't hear you. I'm so sorry. No, nothing. Apologize. Apologies. Yeah, maybe just put it in Slack and then I'll read it out. Okay. So then there's one about using linked data to disambiguate among people with the same names and maybe other kinds of entities. The example of PJ Harvey's a musical group versus individual artists that came up on the first day. What kinds of data should we use and ones that we should not use? And that's also a good question. What if data is not reliably present in sources of metadata? That is also a very good question. Yes, the having those data connections be present and then being able to retrieve them and then asking the question of this data does exist, but should we use it? Those are all really great questions. So I'm not sure if this is a project or an idea of one or more of a comment on things we should keep in mind. And I don't know if the person who wrote this wants to talk about it.
I wrote that. I'm Jeanette Ho from Texas A&M, and this was just mostly an idea and issues that I've observed. So,
yeah,
it's not referring to a specific project.
No, those are all very good questions. And the kinds of questions one has to ask if one's actually implementing a system and going beyond the theoretical of what data actually is present, where are the connections, and not only is it when it, like you said, is it present, is it reliably present, which becomes another question altogether. I added the knowledge panel work and the interfaces for exploration. Okay. I see Khadija typing, so I will come back to her comment in a minute. But I think what the rest of us can do while that comes up is, and I think some of you have already kind of thought about this, but I'll give you maybe 2 more minutes just to see if people have any other ideas about what you think the biggest challenges and opportunities for discovery are in the next few years. And so let's just give that another 2 minutes. That'll get us to about 2:51. And we can kind of talk about that and wrap up. Some great ideas already. I don't see too much writing happening, but maybe people are thinking, that's okay. I'll give everybody a minute. So Khadija says, I have added a lot of items in Wikidata, items about museums, museum libraries, and scholars. I now work with manuscripts and audio cassettes of cultural songs, all of Arabic and Swahili language. That's a really awesome project. You're still typing, so I'll let you type. Yeah, I think it's an interesting project for multiple reasons. And how, and I go back to library catalogs, how could we pull information like that in and then like bring that out, and what might that help users do? What kind of questions would that help users really understand and address? I think that'll be a fascinating little project. I don't mean little in a like little, but like a focused project around that content. And Khadija, oh, okay. I was going to say you're still writing. Manuscripts of 19th and 20th centuries we were trying to digitize and catalog. Yeah, I feel like you should come to one of our sessions and tell us about this. You can get your audio set and we can like talk about that, because I think that's really fascinating. And I feel like the Wikidata Affinity group would also probably, not to speak for them, a few of their members are on the thing, but given the intersection, they might be also interested. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for sharing, Khadija. I'm sorry your audio is not working. Because you probably wanted to ask some questions. So I'm sorry that didn't work out, but please do like keep talking to us on Slack and come to our meetings. I agree, the crossover, it would be a fascinating crossover episode. Okay, so let's just read through these real quick, maybe for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then we can wrap up. And if people have any questions for us, for the discovery group specifically, I think we've covered how to participate, and you can kind of see our links and kind of get a sense of the sorts of things we do. Our next meeting is probably going to be really chill because I don't have anybody planned, so it's going to be me again, and I'll just be like, that conference, huh? So you can come to that. But if any of you who are talking about your ideas right now wanted to sort of come and talk about that some more, I think we'd love to have you. So it says, what do you think are the biggest challenges and opportunities? Incorporating changes to reflect item level information in discovery and search. See the rare materials session earlier today. This came up a lot. Lots that show up in individual MARC records will be shifted to separate item description in BibFrame and RDA, and the possibility of item level display discovery across institutions. I will have to go and retrieve my BibFrame brain for this. Does someone want to speak to this for just maybe 30 seconds? Or we can come back to this. I mean, there is this.
I can say something.
Sure.
I don't know how useful it'll be, but this was kind of like a storm happening in my brain, because I'm also on the focus group for Ex Libris for their development of a connection between Sinopia and Alma. And one of the questions that I raised, but it had come up elsewhere, is we're trying to select a small sample collection to catalog in Sinopia. And I was saying, well, are we going to be able to use extensions? And then I saw the presentation for the templates developed by the rare materials catalogers earlier today. And as I suspected, a lot of those properties are item properties. And this is also a case for RDA, which I'm also involved with the MARC mapping for. So it was a problem in MARC where separate records are being created because there was an item in a special collection that had certain characteristics which might not necessarily affect the text itself, but the pagination, or, there were special things about this. There were aspects of rare book cataloging that caused multiple records to be created in OCLC. That information hopefully will be moving in BibFrame into a description of an item. And so there will be a lot more clarity, we would hope, between entity boundaries. But that structure is different than what we've worked with to display for users in the catalog. And that structure is different than what Mark is set up to support. So it's going to be interesting times, but I think there's a strong interest on the part of the rare materials community, and rare materials are important. And our special collections are important to some institutions, that if they have rare book libraries, and most major universities have. So how are we, when this change happens, it will affect how the display happens. Now, there was a remark made in this focus group at our kickoff meeting. Nobody has developed a discovery interface based on BibFrame yet, or based on linked data yet. I'm not sure that's entirely true. I think, maybe to look at some of what if the European libraries like the National Library of Sweden are doing, and see if that's true yet, or if there are examples we can point to that are actually running off of linked data, not sort of a marked compromise. But if that's true, that's a model that discovery interfaces are going to have to deal with. So it's really future thinking, but the future is getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
so if we have descriptive elements that apply to a specific copy, how do we display them? Do we display them? Of course we must.
Mm-hmm.
How do we display them? How do we connect them to a description of the particular edition? And how do we connect them to information about the items and where you can check them out and requesting and all of that mechanism from the library system?
So, yeah, Sue has a comment. We've had that problem of multiple records for collections to also individual photos from photo albums. So I think I will have to probably replay this and take in all the details that Laura just said. But I think, there's this difference, like you're saying, in the model, in what the model captures with linked data or BibFrame or whatever, and how we capture information, how the catalog relies on the way Mark captures information, and there's a difference there. And how and where do we cross that gap? And so there are some other comments here about a scalable open data infrastructure for supporting discovery while avoiding proprietary enclosure or over-reliance on redundant local work or over-dependent on a particular vendor's product. So that seems to be, is it scalable? Is it not just limited to a particular vendor? Multilingual support, not just using variant names and titles, but enabling the whole display to toggle between languages. Metadata exchange, do we need a full mapping, or can we create a set of common properties? I'm not sure which copy cataloging discussion this is related to. So if whoever wrote that, since we don't have time, could just maybe link to which session. Ensuring we're suppressing unethical metadata, which is very important. Presenting options for users with answers in NLP, which I feel is probably related to our chat GPT climate. Never-ending migrations to the next shiny new system platform. Yes, I'm afraid I can't do anything about that one, but it's something to keep in mind. This is a very interesting question, how to enable digital humanities and sciences scholars to design their own discovery portals. Could whoever wrote that, since we're at time, just maybe add a comment or a little bit extra info there about what they mean, because it's a really interesting way to think about that, to go, and that question has come up. I will just mention, I think Share VDE and other people have tried to see if they could do a linked data discovery interface, and there have been other people, but I don't know how many there are in production. I would assume not too many yet. Multilinguality from Jarmo again. If we convert data back from linked data to MARC, how do we handle that? Reducing redundancies in cataloging, which has always been a dream. Aggregates and their parts. I think that's a modeling issue again. I really like the next gen library, because the next generation library, apparently, I think if I given the literature was like 20 years ago or something, or 10 years ago. And so now we're at the next step. These are really great. And people want to add to these, please do. I think they all make really fascinating discussion starting points. And Jarmo had a comment, which I don't think I'll be able to integrate yet, but these are really fascinating. And Jarmo, I think I'll copy your comment into the notes so that I don't lose it. So just put it here.
It's okay.
No, we got it here. It's okay. And Carly says I would consider, yes, Lux is definitely a linked data discovery interface. And I apologize that even though I did mention it like 5 times, I didn't say that immediately. So thank you for pointing that out. So thank you all. Please do consider coming to a meeting, suggesting a topic, telling us about a presentation, just saying I have a problem we want to work through, because that's kind of what the Discovery Affinity group is for. And we would really love to see more people. And thank you, Susan, again, for all your kind words. I'm always glad to see you in the list, because I know at least there'll be someone going, yay. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for all coming to the last session of a Thursday. So I hope you have a very great rest of your conference time. Khadija, please do continue talking to us on Slack. I'm so sorry your audio didn't work, but hopefully we can get that fixed. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of your whatever time zone. Goodbye.